Hi, ChickenboneJohn here, and welcome to another episode of building a cigar box guitar. This time we're going to be putting in some position dot markers on your fretboard and on the edge of the fretboard, and we're going to show you doing simple plastic dots, and if you want to get fancy, pearl dots. Let's do it. We're going to put some dots in this guitar neck. Position dots which help you navigate the way around the fretboard. I'm going to put this lot in on the face, eccentric on one side because I like that. I'm not going to measure this, I'm just going to gauge this with my pencil. Put a light pencil mark along there. I'm going to do the same thing along the top edge here. Okay. And the conventional positions are after the before the 3rd fret, 5th fret, 7th, 9th, 12th, and then you repeat. I'm not going to measure. You can do if you're not too sure about this. So I'm going to go in here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. On my 12 it's going to be a double, oops, it's going to be a twin dot. So I'm just going to mark so I get that accurate again, wherever I fancy that really. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We run out there behind the last fret. So double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 for a double dot, and then repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Always count it twice, and then you can mark on the top edge to match that. Okay, double dot here for your 12th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, just put that one out of the way to stop confusing us. So there we have it. Now all we need to do is to take an electric drill. Cordless drills are great. This is a Bosch, I think it's a 10.8 volt battery, not too heavy. I've just bought some replacement ones off eBay, and I think they were £35 delivered from Germany. It was an English stock. They've got the English transformer with them, so that was perfect. So I'm going to take a 3.2mm drill. I'm just going to put that in the chuck. There we go. And I'm just going to go to my point where I want it and lightly drill it in and repeat. Just go up the neck doing this. You can even do it with one of these, the old-fashioned, egg beater type drill. They still work. So if you've got one of these kicking about, you can use that. But I think most people have probably got an electric drill. I do like the cordless because they're nice and light. And for this sort of work, you don't need anything much more than that's a 10.8. You don't really need a 12 or an 18 volt. The things like that start getting very heavy and unwieldy. We try and keep it accurate. I'm just pressing it down so it's going to bite. And I'm just drilling it maybe about half the depth of the fretboard. So you just need to be bang on where you've got your mark, especially where you've got these double dots, so they look right. So we continue all the way up the fretboard. Do you see what I've done here? I'm not clamped this down, but I've got a block here the same thickness as this heel, so there's going to be no movement. If you wanted to be super sure, I'd clamp it down, and certainly if you were using one of these that requires both hands, I would certainly clamp that down. Okay, so just got a couple more to do. Okay, Now we can change the drill bit to do the side dots, and that's a 2.5. See, I've always got a few drill bits knocking around, and here's my 2.5. So we put the 2.5 in. Don't need that packer in. Just to make sure, I'm just going to clamp that down, so that's not going to move. Same procedure. You just have to be very careful because you're on the edge here. You don't want that to move and you don't want it to split. There we go. Same procedure all the way up your neck. Now you can have it, if you've got a drill press, that is ideal. But you certainly do not need one. It can make things easier. Well, it does make things easier. And more accurate. But it is by no means essential. It is one of the first sort of what I call, bench tool, power tool that I bought. You can see that's perfectly good enough for what we want. Okay, so we drilled all the way up just to make sure this stays in place. I'll clamp it down. Doesn't do any harm clamping your work down. Okay, so we're going to put in this 3.2mm dot. As I say, this is like model shop extrusion. Just be careful because sometimes you get a little void down the middle. So I'm just going to cut that off. Make sure we've got a nice clean piece. Bit of tight bond glue. I've decanted this into a little squeezy bottle. Just a dab in there. That's all you need. You get your clean edge. And I just sort of twist that in to make sure I can feel that's well and truly getting into that hole. And then I'm going to cut it off with a scalpel. Just holding this. I don't think it's a particularly sharp one, but in fact you can usually snap them off like that. Okay, and then I'll just tap that in. Dot the whole lot. Let's put another one in. I'll not do the whole thing here, but you can see. Just a dot of glue. Check to make sure you're that's okay. And we twist it in so I can feel it being seated. Then I cut it with my knife. You can use a pair of cutters. I was sort of snapping it off there, you could see. There we go. I can see I've got a hole in that one, so I'm going to pull that out. Because I'm not that happy with it when it does that. So I'm just going to whoop, pull that out. So I'm not happy with that. So I'm just going to make sure I get a clean end with that. Yeah, that looks like I've got, as I say, sometimes when the extrusion process just leaves a little void. So if you got that, or you can, sometimes if you pinch it, it will close that up with the pliers. So, gone back in with that. Indeed, here we go. You can nip that off with a pair of cutters. And then simply, I'd leave that really for the glue to go off, but just a block, piece of sandpaper. This is my 120 grit, so that's quite coarse. And then you can finish that off with some 120. But you can see the pencil lines will come right out. And indeed, we can do exactly the same thing with the smaller dots. It's handy having a little bottle of this. It's just that bit more accurate. Actually just wiping away the excess, because it will squeeze out. And this is my thin stuff, just making sure I've got a nice clean edge. So I'm twisting that as it goes in. I'll take my knife or my cutters. I'm cutting away. I don't want to cut myself with that scalpel. Be very careful when you're using scalpels or craft knives or anything like that, that you make sure you're not going to get in the line of where you're cutting, in the line of fire. And so, as I say, normally I'd wait for this to dry off. And you can sand out your pencil line. So that's putting in plastic dots. Let's do a different markup with this one. We'll put this in the centre. Here's a little tip for doing this. If you want to get these bang on the centre, we're going to come in here in the 3. We can actually mark a diagonal from fret slot to fret slot, and that's going to be in the centre and in the centre that way. I can work our way up the fretboard. 3, 5, 7, 9. Always double check these. You do not want to ruin your fretboard by drilling into the wrong point. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm going to put a double dot here. See, I mean, you can do this as you wish. So I'm going to put a line through there, and I think I'll measure in from the edges somewhere that looks about right. 10 mil from the edge. That's all right. Okay, so I've got my line there. Now for this one, we're going to put pearl dots in, I think, for this. So we've got some 6mm pearl dots. So we're going to use a 6mm drill. For this you really do need a brad point bit, a wood bit with this point in the middle that will get you accurately onto your position. And for this I am going to clamp that down again. I don't want any movement, any error. It's so easy to mess up your fretboard if you're not really careful with it. So here we go. We've got the point on there, gently pressing down. Let's go back in there a wee bit. That's enough. We don't need it to be too deep, deep enough to take the dot. Maybe a wee bit deeper than that. So we've got some of these pearl dots here. When I get these, I do go through them. I pick them over to find the better ones, because sometimes occasionally they'll get a chip out of them, or they might seem to have got a better face. So all we do, make sure this is free of any dust. Put a dot of glue in there, because that's going to be quite a tight fit. And it'll sort of squeeze that glue out. But you can see, there we go, it's squeezing that out. If you drill them fairly deep, you don't want to hammer those in, because the last thing you want is for those dots to be too low. So I can feel it's bedded on the glue and they're just a little bit proud. Leave that to dry. I would leave that for a couple of 3 hours to dry, and then you can just go over with your sanding block again to get those nice and smooth. With the pearl, if they're like that, just showing a little bit above, I would go in with something like 240. This, the 120, will take it down very quickly, but it's going to leave marks in it. So you want to work that progressively finer. So get them flush with some 120, and then you can go in and get the whole board sort of sanded and almost polished down with progressively finer grits. That's it. We just continue up the neck, put the edge dots in like we did before. So wait for that to dry off, sand it off, and you've got your fretboard all nicely marked out with your conventional patterns. Interestingly, if you're making ukuleles and banjos, I think they put this marker, which we've got here at the 9th, they seem to put a marker in at the 10th. That seems to be tradition for banjos and ukes. I really don't know why that's the case, but just to repeat, the normal position is 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, double dot at the 12th, and then repeat. Just a word, if you are doing a neck which has got 24 frets in it, you may find this sort of dot, these are 6mm, you may find them a squeeze to get in at the 24th fret. So you might look at putting in 5mm dots, or you can even get 2mm dots once you get past the 12th fret. That's why using this sort of stuff, a small dot, 3.2, you're never going to have that problem. And in reality, I think most people look at these edge markers. This is the ones that you see when you're looking down on the instrument. But it's nice to have the position dots in. Okay, that's it. Okay, hopefully that was another fairly simple episode. So stick with us. We're going to get a little bit more complicated in the next few episodes. We're going to be showing you how to carve the neck, and then we're going to level the fretboard and put the frets in. This is the most difficult part, but it's not rocket science. It'll take another 2 or 3 episodes to get there. Stick with it. Take your time. It's supposed to be fun. Okay, bye for now.